Afternoon, Tim. How you doing?
Good afternoon, Shabbar. Well, I'm more awake than I was 20 minutes ago when we tried to record our first version of this podcast, and then we had
Right,
a technical glitch. So
right.
that helped wake me up. How are you?
I'm good. Take two.
Take two.
Dive in. Let's let's go. Um, I was looking at BBC Sport the other day, and I came across an article which was about the #1 golfer in the world, Scottie Scheffler, and immensely successful over the last few years, been winning lots of tournaments. And there was a picture of him looking really quite depressed and sad and questioning, what's the point, or what's the meaning of the chase for success, and I can't remember the exact headline. I think you might have it, but
It was
the
what's the point? Yeah.
what's the point? Yeah. And so the whole interview was based around this, almost like search for meaning. It seemed it was quite philosophical. So we've been talking a lot over the last 20 odd episodes about the money path, the life path, and how we project certain things onto money. And one of the big things that comes up in a lot of my conversations with clients, and especially with people at the mosque and family, is how we tie up success with money, pretty much
Mhm.
like instantaneously. It's like hardwired. And I thought that this was just really interesting because it threw up a lot around, you know, success. What's the point? These fleeting moments of accomplishment. And yeah, I thought, why not just dive into that for today and
Mm.
see where we go. So, what are your thoughts?
I also noticed the interview. I read it. I listened to it. I'm interested, as you said, in the headline that sort of made it seem very gloomy. But if you watch the
Yeah,
actual press conference, he's quite cheerful. He's just a bit reflective.
yeah,
Kind of aware that he's asking questions that don't normally get talked about. So it was more cheerful than people might imagine. I thought it was really interesting. And here's what I noticed. I'll say a few things and then you just tell me, Shabba, what you want to dive in.
okay,
The first thing is he did actually say that he has a lot of fun playing golf. So he wasn't like, I'm thinking of Andre Agassi, the tennis player who famously wrote an autobiography where he admitted he hated playing tennis. Scottie Scheffler, he says, I love playing golf. It's amazing. I get to play golf, I get to practice, etc. So that's great. Whether he's the #1 golfer or the number 500 golfer or an amateur golfer, he gets to do what he loves. So for me, that really relates to this idea of what we've talked about of being on your life path. If you get to do what you love to do, whether you get money or not, this is good. And I would go further. In some ways within this work, the money work that we're talking about, a definition of success from a life-centered point of view is nothing to do with a number. So your winnings don't make you a success. Your money doesn't make you a success. And anyone listening to this who maybe is comparing themselves to others, am I successful because of what they earn or the size of their house or the size of their investments? From our point of view, none of that really makes you a success. What makes you a success is, do you get to spend your life doing what you love? The more you get to spend time doing what you really enjoy doing, that's successful. So we could come on to that. But yeah, then he questioned this fleeting nature. He says, like, when I win a tournament, I feel brilliant for 2 minutes.
yeah,
And then it's like, what am I going to have for dinner? And how do I win the next tournament?
yeah.
And what I saw him do is question, why do I want to win so much?
Why do I want to
I
be
have
one of
fun.
life's
Yeah.
winners? I remember that
Yeah.
that coming from from one of our episodes where I think I said, actually, even grabbing a deal makes me feel like one of life's winners.
So this compulsion to be a winner, whether we're a brilliant golfer or a regular person or whatever, why do I want to win? And what he seemed to be noticing was his fun came from playing and his deep satisfaction came from somewhere totally different, maybe his family, his relationships, or actually listening to his interview. I think he's not quite sure where the deepest fulfillment actually will come in his life, and that's fine. But he noticed he was driven to win, even while recognizing it was a very hollow, fleeting experience. And I thought that was often very interesting. Many people in daily life, people listening to this, we're not all about winning the tournament, but we might be about getting more money or getting the bonus or climbing the ladder or our version of winning. And we could also reflect that it's like we're often very driven to get there, but when we're there, it's like, okay, what's for dinner and what's next? And that's not where the satisfaction is to be found. So I found that interesting as well.
Yeah, and just coming on to that, I think I remember listening to an episode with Stephen Bartlett when he was talking about the first time he made or exited from a company that he built, and it was tens of millions. And he thought it would be this sort of euphoric moment that signaled that he'd made it. And he remembers feeling deflated, like when the money hit the bank, because all of what he was tying up maybe in the number of what it would mean in terms of who he was and who he'd become, etc. Like the number didn't give him that feeling, whatever it was, and he actually felt quite empty.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's quite profound and quite sad at the same time, that you've been chasing something. And I'm just using the Scottie Scheffler, like winning the Masters, like the most prestigious golf tournament, and he's like, it lasts for like a couple of minutes, and then it's like, next week I'm playing again, and I'm now focused on winning the next tournament and not getting beaten, and that competition and that drive. Is that just maybe just a natural, is that a natural human tendency to want to, is it the greed for more?
Well, that's a very profound question. Let's go back to Stephen Bartlett, because you said it's a bit sad and he felt a bit deflated. It's also a tremendous opportunity. When we have those moments, so I sell my first company for millions and, oh my God, I don't feel amazing and accomplished and like I've arrived. And then I feel kind of empty. Or I win the Masters and it's amazing for 2 minutes. And then I go, oh, I'm still here and I have to have dinner and wash my laundry. And on the one hand, you could say, well, that's a surprise when it happens, and then it can feel deflating and empty. It's also a moment of real possibility. And we've talked about this on the podcast before, but I'll just recap briefly. In that moment, in psychological language, what we're experiencing is the collapse of a projection. In other words, if all my life I don't feel accomplished, I don't feel successful, or I imagine, maybe I feel a little bit accomplished and a bit successful, but I imagine that I can feel fully accomplished and successful, and I project that onto when I win the Masters. That's when I get to access my full power or my full happiness or whatever. Or I imagine when I sell my first business, that's when I'll get to feel I really belong or I've really arrived. Or anyone listening to this, when I get to this certain level, or when I get my book published, or whatever it is. But we project the feeling we want to have, brackets, therefore that means I'm not having it now, onto some future event. Then two things happen. Possibly that event never happens. I never win the Masters. So then I get to spend my entire life chasing the Masters. And then I can say, well, the reason I don't feel accomplished and successful is I never won the Masters. So I keep chasing, and that gives me a drive in my life and directs my life, and also gives me a jolly good excuse to explain why I don't feel really successful. I compare myself with the #1 golfer in the world and I feel a bit crappy about myself. But if I'm really lucky, I get to win the Masters. And then I get to actually experience that winning the Masters doesn't solve any of my deeper human questions, doesn't make me feel like a whole human being. I'm just the same guy I was yesterday, but now I won the Masters. In that moment, I get to experience, I might not see it as clearly, but I get to experience the deflation that comes from the thing I thought would make me feel whole and complete and successful doesn't. And that could be an opportunity, and I hear a bit of that in what Scottie Scheffler says, where I start to ask deeper questions. Wow, if even being the #1 golfer in the world and achieving my childhood dream doesn't make me feel like a whole complete human being,
Mm,
what might, or what's going on? And then I might look more inward or on a kind of a wisdom path. And
yeah,
none of that's to say it's not brilliant. It's brilliant to win golf tournaments. It just won't make you feel
yeah.
like a whole complete human being.
I'm just reading the quote. This is not a fulfilling life, i.e., golf, he's referring to. It's fulfilling from a sense of accomplishment, but it's not fulfilling from the
Yes.
deepest places of your heart,
Yes.
which is very, very profound from the
Yes.
number one golfer in the world. I was like,
Yes.
that's, it's not what you get from your standard pre-tournament kind of interview. But yeah, it's like not fulfilling from the deepest places of your heart. So he's he's really searching for something, and
Yeah.
I'm probably searching for the same thing, in a way. And it's almost like we just get, I don't know, hoodwinked or sidetracked into thinking
Mm,
that, oh yeah, it's
mm.
tied up in over there. I was thinking that the reclamation, Scottie Scheffler is, I'm successful with and without being the number one golfer in the world, was sort of like coming to me. Maybe we need to get him on and do some
I'd love
reclamation.
to.
Yeah,
We should
so
try.
we should try that for sure. But we do end up in all aspects, and for him it's golf tournaments, etc., and he's working that out. For me it's a certain amount of money that I think, or a certain size of business, or it could be the success of my child, or that makes me feel successful.
Yeah.
We just tie so many things up.
Or how many people, imaginary number, how many people would need to be downloading this podcast for you to think you suddenly
Yeah,
felt successful and accomplished?
yeah, and that number, and we know that number just changes as soon as you hit the number. You're not satisfied, and you want a bigger number. Well, I guess that's conventional thinking, and we're trying to sort of move away. So yeah, I mean, where do we go with this?
Well, what I would say is, you asked a question early on when we were introducing this. You said, well, is that just human nature that we're always chasing success and
Yeah,
wanting the next thing? But you also said a really interesting thing. You said it's like we get hoodwinked and sidetracked. So we chase the thing that isn't going to satisfy the deepest places of our heart. What I would say is, and I'm bringing in kind of deep psychology and spiritual perspectives, because I think any time a professional golfer says it doesn't satisfy the deepest places of your heart, they are touching into spiritual questions, or what I would call transpersonal questions, questions about what's really here beyond me and my ego and my culture's definition of success. So I would say, and I'm drawing here both on depth psychology and on my 30 years of Buddhist practice and training and teaching, I would say the human tendency is this capacity to be hoodwinked and sidetracked eternally from really connecting in and honouring what it is we really want in our hearts. So from a Buddhist point of view, they would say what we all desire is to be happy, and all humans wish to be happy. We just don't actually know how to find happiness. And because of our confusion and the way we don't relate to ourselves and others in the world in the way it actually works, we continually chase and search for our happiness in the wrong places, in the wrong way. So you might say from a Buddhist psychology, it's not just Buddhism, Hinduism says many things, and maybe in some way all traditions do, there's like a deep human tendency to be looking for what we really want in entirely the wrong place, and not to hear the message. So when projections collapse, and this is why what Scottie Scheffler said is so great, instead of going, oh, the projection has collapsed, maybe I'm looking in entirely the wrong place, maybe there's a whole other way of thinking about life here, we just go, well, I need to win another tournament, or,
yeah,
oh, I need to double my money, or, oh, well, that relationship didn't work, I need to find a new partner. Or we just keep playing this game of looking for the thing out there
yeah,
that we think will deliver satisfaction. And it's not always money, but it's very often wrapped up in things around money or the getting of money,
yeah.
etc.
It's funny though, because I think he did touch upon what it is that it is important to him. because he goes, being a dad is one of the greatest joys of my life, but golf doesn't fill the deepest wants and desires of my heart. So he's kind of made, that could be one of the things that actually is truest for him. And being a dad, if my golf ever affected my home life, that would be the day I stop. So he's already sort of made that connection that golf isn't the most important thing, although he's still driven for the accomplishment. I guess it's like we're all on a journey where we might realize and see it for what it is, but actually then acting it out and carrying it through might be the struggle. So that was one thing. And the second thing was, I was just thinking about one of the episodes we did when I was talking about a verse in the Quran where it was like man's striving for more gains, going for more diverts you in your life path, whatever it is, right? So it's almost like that inherent pursuit of more does distract you. I used the word hoodwink today, which still sort of ties into that. So what do we do about this? If we're presented with this, I don't know, dilemma, it seems, of pursuing success, wanting to feel successful, and it's sort of being projected externally. How do we maneuver?
Well, this is becoming very profound. So again, thank you to the #1 golfer in the world, because we're touching into, I would say, spiritual, or excuse me, for some religious questions, or deep philosophical, metaphysical questions. I think one way to think about it is, at some point, the question of life path can become very deep. So the first step for most of us is just, what if I just wasn't chasing money? What would I do? Or what if I wasn't trying to compare myself with others around money? What would I do? So that first step, which is a big step still in our society or culture, doesn't necessarily point to the deep mysteries of the universe. It's just more like, who am I really? And what do I love? And what am I here to do? And what are my values? And simply taking that step from the money path to the life path, I wouldn't underestimate what a big step it is, or a big series of steps, because as you know, we don't just do it once. So for anyone listening to this, and we've talked about this in many episodes, just finding the clarity and the courage and confidence to try and really live and do in my life what I really believe, whether there's money or not, is massive. And then at some point, I think it naturally starts to happen. As I follow that path, I become more free from all the stuff society and culture and my peers and my inner chatter is telling me. And my fine tuning about where do I really feel alive becomes more and more finely tuned. And that might lead me into more and more depth about what is it really to be on a life path. So for an example, it may be painting and creativity is one, but then maybe there's something about bringing creativity into everything I do. And maybe that takes me even into the nature of the universe is creative. So in other words, I can become more and more subtle or carry on this life path. And that might help me gradually become less and less hoodwinked and more clear about what's really important. Again, this could be a whole episode. It makes me think that in the Jewish tradition, when someone dies, you say to them a phrase which translates as, I wish you long life. I wish you long life. And in many traditions, they have this idea of eternal life, don't they? Eternal life. Now, that's interesting because life, we're talking about life path. The obvious interpretation of I wish you long life when someone dies is like, well, I hope you don't die soon, mate. I hope you live a long time. But actually, the inner meaning is, I wish you have presence and awareness and live really in the now, because that's when life feels long, right? If you're always chasing the next golf tournament, the next tennis tournament, the next deal, I'm not here. I don't get to actually be present in my life. I'm always chasing. And it's my view that one interpretation of traditions that talk about eternal life isn't you're going to get to somewhere else and live forever. But it's actually, if in your present consciousness, you could be fully present and not chasing more and not chasing the future and not with some idea that I will be a better person next week or next year. And nor are you caught up in the past and all these things. You're really here now in your life. Then in one sense, that's the true definition of being on your life path, because you're actually experiencing your life. And it also leads in, I think, into what many spiritual traditions are really talking about through prayer and surrender and meditation. So we've come away from a long way from golf.
We've come a long way from golf. You know, again, that book, The Power of Now, just immediately comes into, and you know what we've discussed, those fleeting moments where time stands still.
Yes.
Because you're fully present and you're not worried about anything that happened previously. You're not projecting into the future. You're just focused on that moment. And time, because I experienced it very fleetingly. We had that, you know, walk across the bridge along the Thames with my wife, which was a very nice experience, and got to feel that. But again, I think these moments, they do come, and
They do come.
You do experience, and it almost feels like it's just, you know, it's almost like a form of training that you've got to notice, digest, and then become more aware and more conscious. And maybe those opportunities end up appearing more often because you're just more susceptible to them.
I think that's exactly right. And if you look at, certainly in the great Tibetan meditation traditions, that is exactly how they're described. And then, you know, since we're going deep, let me say this, then you get into the very interesting thing that if you're not careful, if you're caught up in this modern industrial chasing logic, then you go, I'm going to learn to pray or meditate. Well, you end up just chasing future experiences with that too. You just bring all of your achievement and success chasing to meditation, and you go, oh, one day I'm not going to be the best golfer, I'm going to be the best meditator, I'm going to be a better meditator. And then you're still living in the future. So what the great traditions actually say is, well, as long as you're doing that, you're still hoodwinked. And the only thing in the end to do is gently cultivate this thing about being present, whether you have money or no money, or you're the best golfer or a terrible golfer, but actually be in your life. That seems to be the place, as you say, where we have these moments of fulfillment and moments of something just deeper than these fleeting moments of success.
Yeah, that's like the first step, and a very important step. Is there another step to take?
Let me share a thought that came up. So also this week there's a big boxing match. There's the Alexander Usyk against Daniel Dubois for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. And people are often surprised when I say I'm a Buddhist meditator for 30 years, that I also love boxing, right?
Yeah.
Now, I think any elite sport, one of the interesting things is they say, well, I'm doing it to become the champ and I'm doing it for the achievement. And that's one story. But I think actually at elite sport, people often, it forces them to become truly present. If you're really, really performing at the top level, you often have those moments of flow or presence, or when your thinking mind, your chattering mind, you're really just there. And if you listen to many great sports people, they will say those are the moments they live for. You hear that in cricket as well. Sometimes you just know you're totally present. You're going to hit the ball. So it's interesting to me. It's like what we think we're chasing is the external achievement. We're chasing being the Masters champion, the #1, the best golfer, the this, that, the other, right? Or if we're not sports people, we think we're chasing the bonus, the pension, the promotion. But maybe actually those things aren't really fulfilling. That's what we're hearing from Scottie Scheffler and others. But maybe there's something about certain activities more naturally open us up to those moments where we're really fully present. And in terms of what we might do with our lives, I would say those moments are available anywhere. So I know people who paint, and when they're painting, they're really present. Or they might do sports, and when they're doing sports, they're really present. Or they might just go for a lovely walk in London with their wife, and those moments pop up. So I wonder if, in a very gentle, non-ambitious way, what we're actually trying to maximize in our lives is those moments of grace and presence. And if that's true, maybe they could come anywhere.
Yeah, it's true, because a lot of sports personalities, when they do speak about their achievements, and when they've done exceptionally well, it has been almost like not thinking about it. It's just come very naturally, and sometimes they can't even recall how they did it. Like, it was just time stood still and I did my thing.
That's right. Well, maybe if all of us, anyone listening to this, could just have as their little intentional possibility, time stands still and I just do my thing. That could be quite a good motto for our whole life, rather than I do whatever I do to get my pension pot bigger. Time stands still, I do my thing, and life unfolds.
Would be nice. Sounds a bit scary to me. Yeah.
What's scary?
I think just the fact that we're just conditioned to be chasing, moving forward, achievement, success. That's I think that's, for me, what it feels a bit scary. I try and implement as much as I can in my own life, and we talk about it on the show, but ultimately I think there's still that real anxiety over breaking away from the modern industrial complex. We speak about it. It's almost like, are you really going to start swimming against the tide kind of thing, which is becoming more and more apparent to me, that the way that it's done conventionally, and the things that we're taught and brought up with, even the schooling system, the grading system, like, it's all geared around numbers, achievements, success. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? It's just a very, very gripping kind of a force.
Well, what I would say, and we're going into very profound territory today.
Well,
I hope it's interesting for people. Two things. Well, maybe not two things. Sometimes we imagine that if I'm not grabbed by that story about success and achievement and building my number or building my profile, sometimes we think if I just kind of let that story go, the fear is I won't do anything or I'll become a failure, right? It's like we believe we need this story, this kind of slightly stressy, never quite satisfied story. We believe we need to be aiming for something in order to function or do anything. So sometimes the fear is, well, if I just drop the story, I'd just lie on my sofa all day, or I wouldn't earn money. But
I'd end up under a bridge.
I'd end up under a bridge. Now, what's interesting on this podcast is we often say, look for counterexamples. The reason I mentioned the boxing is because I'm incredibly interested in this guy, Alexander Usyk, as well as I'm 1/4 Ukrainian as well. So right. I like it. But if you hear the way this guy talks and responds to interviews, it seems to me he is incredibly present. They ask him a question about the past. He says, it doesn't matter. It's the past. They asked him what's going to happen. He says, more or less, it doesn't matter. But it's like he's understood, I believe, I don't know, but I believe in quite a deep way, which makes him incredibly impressive. He has understood the power of being in the present moment and not allowing his mind to either chase being world champion or worry about what happened. He's present, right? I think that's part of what gives this guy incredible force. Does it mean he doesn't turn up every day to train? No, he still has discipline. He still does the work he needs to do. And so my impression of people like him is they still execute what they need to, but they do it free from this story and preoccupation about the future. And I think this means anyone who really lived this way, you can still be a financial advisor or a golfer or a boxer or a parent, but you can do exactly what you're doing, but you can do it in a very, very different way. And I think that's where the power comes. So you'll probably end up being much better at what you do and much more deeply fulfilled because you're in touch with life. And that's why, to come back to this spiritual thing, sometimes we think, oh, if I want to live a spiritual life, well, I'd have to stop being an investment manager and start being a monk. Well, no, maybe you could just be a really, really present investment manager. And maybe you could just see that all of these stories about numbers are just some part of this great illusion. But you could still, if you like it or you can serve people, you could still do it. Just do it in a very different way. And I think this becomes very powerful.
Yeah, I can see how that brings it definitely into everyone's life, and it's not something that's unattainable, or it's for the mystics or the spiritual gurus and people like that. It's actually a very common practice that everyone has access to.
Well, everyone has access to it. It's not common because we're all hoodwinked.
Because
we're all hoodwinked with sidetrack, and our media and our education continues to hoodwink us.
Yeah.
But it's
because the people in charge of policy are all if they're all hoodwinked, then I think that's just going to
everyone's hoodwinked, and we're all therefore replicating and educating how to be hoodwinked. And then you meet rare people in the world. It doesn't matter if they're the #1 boxer or some interesting old guy sitting on a park bench, but they've dropped the story. They're not chasing something. They don't believe there's some number or achievement or thing out there that will suddenly make them whole. And the paradox is, the more they drop the story, the more they realize they're already whole, sitting on the park bench or training for the fight or advising clients about money. They're already whole, and then they can do what they do much more effectively and helpfully.
Yeah, I think that's the moral of the show today. Drop the story.
Drop the story.
And if Scottie Scheffler is listening, we'd like to get him on to do some reclamation work.
And for a golf lesson, please.
And for a golf. Great, Tim. I really enjoyed that. I'll see you next time.
See you soon. Bye-bye.